good afternoon.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, Miss.
How are you today?
Good, Miss.
Okay. So about today's meeting, I'm going to ask you first. Do you guys like reading a fiction?
Yes, Miss.
All right, good then. Because today we're going to learn about writing a fiction narrative. So let's start with the definition first. So from the word narrative, it means telling an event in chronological way. And then the word fiction means something that is untrue or something imagination. So fiction narratives is a story or an event description that is not true or based on imagination. Now we move to this generic structure. These are the generic structure of fiction narrative. And the first is orientation, which is how the story begins, how it describes who is the character, where is the place, and why is the story begin. And then complication means how the conflict happened or started. And then resolution, it is where the conflict is finished, and then there is reorientation, which is the conclusion or moral lesson. But reorientation is optional, so we can put it in the story or not. Okay, now let's see the example of fiction narrative. The title is The Legend of Salatiga. So from the title, we can know it is about Salatiga. Okay, this is the orientation part. You can see this the introduction about the character, about the place, the name, and how the character begin the story. And then complication. Complication is because complication is when the conflict started. We can see that the conflict started when he realized when there is a chief that realized about Sunan Kalijaga. You can read it. And then the last structure is resolution. So the story is finished with the structure is finished by with Sunan Kalijaga and the place that is named as Salatiga. All right. Now, because we already know about the story, we are going to write about fiction narrative too. We are going to write that kind of story. So what do you do to write a story? The first thing you need to do is, of course, we need to find the idea first, and we need to choose the theme. What is the story about? Whether we want to make a happy story about friendship, about romance, or scary story about horror. And then the second step is collecting data or information. And of course, because we will write a story with a detail in the story, we need to know the information, the specific information about our topic and our theme. And then to know about the information, we need to collect the data. We can search in the internet, in the social media, in the news, and etc. And after we collect the data, we can start to draft the story. So drafting means we write every ideas we got. We just write it without thinking about the wrong, about the false grammar, or about the word that we don't know. So we just write it. And then after we got the whole idea, we can start to revise our story. We can revise the grammar, the structure, the concept, and also the plot. If we think it is already good, then we can finish our story. So everyone, do you guys have anything to ask about this material?
Can I, Miss?
Okay, we go to Aurora first. Aurora, you can ask.
Okay, thank you, Miss. So I have questions. It is about the generic structure of narrative text. Why we have to put the orientation and why it is set as an optional, Miss. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Aurora, for your question. So I explained that reorientation is optional because the moral story of a narrative, sometimes the writer or the author of the story doesn't put it explicitly. So the moral story can be interpreted by the reader. It is hidden. So after reading the story, every reader can interpret the moral of the lesson by themselves. So it is not written explicitly. And some of the writer will write it explicitly in the end of the story as the moral story. So that's why the writer can choose whether they want to put it explicitly or not. So that's why reorientation is optional. Is it clear, Aurora?
Yes, Miss. Thank you, Miss.
All right, thank you. How about Jecki? What do you want to ask?
I want to ask about what is the main purpose of writing a fiction narrative, Miss?
All right. So as we know, narrative is the explanation about an event, and the fiction is something untrue or something based on imagination. Even though it is something based on imagination, it can the story can be an entertainment for the reader. So the reader can feel enjoyable after reading the story. And beside that, we also can take the moral lesson uh, as what the story told. So we can take a lesson from the story too, beside of entertainment. How about that, Jecki?
Yes, Miss, I got the point. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Jecki, for your question too. Now, everyone, we already know about what narrative, fiction narrative is, and what is the example, and also we already know how to write it. I hope you guys can start to write about your ideas. You can just draft your ideas, your whatever you guys like to write, you guys like to read, and I hope it can be a guide for you to write a creative writing. Thank you so much for your attention, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.